Hey guys, tonight we step quietly, very quietly, into the olive-scented air of ancient Athens. You stand at the foot of the Acropolis, your sandals scuffing the dry stone path, and you tilt your head back to stare at the Parthenon. It's glowing in the moonlight, that perfect rectangle of marble built to honor a goddess who, frankly, is not having it today. The crickets chirp, the cicadas have finally called it a night, and you can just make out the distant sound of waves from the port of Piraeus. The air is still, but charged with something irritable, because Athena, wisest of the Olympians, patron of crafts and war, and ever iconic helmet wearer, is annoyed. Again. And tonight, you're going to find out why. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. I love seeing how far this sleepy little corner of the internet travels. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You make your way slowly up the steps to the Parthenon, feeling each slab of marble warm under your toes. The night has stored the heat of the day like a grumpy lizard, reluctant to let it go. Athenian guards, more decorative than dangerous, nod you through. No one stops you. Maybe they don't see you, or maybe Athena does, and she's decided you're harmless enough to observe. After all, you're not a hero. That already earns you points. The great statue of Athena Parthenos, taller than a house, covered in ivory and gold, stands inside like she owns the place. Technically, she does. She's got a spear in one hand, a shield in the other, and a little winged Nike on her palm, like a bonus goddess. But despite all the symbols of victory, there's a tiny set to her bronze jaw, a furrow in her sculpted brow. If you squint, you'd swear she's about to roll her eyes. Why? Because for all the songs sung and temples raised in her name, Athena's had a long run of mortals being, how to put this, absolutely ridiculous. The Athenians built this entire city around her, named it after her, even carved her face into their coins. But they also managed to misinterpret half her advice, mess up most of her gifts, and turn nearly every myth she's involved in into some kind of chaotic man problem. You know the type. Bold declarations, quests with zero planning, and dramatic exits via winged sandals. Historians still argue whether Athena was ever truly fond of mortals or just bemused by them. She helps them, sure, but always with that energy of a teacher watching. A student try to plug a scroll into a candle. Take the myth of Erichthonius. Try saying that 3 times fast. A half-serpent baby born from the most uncomfortable, divine encounter you could imagine. Don't worry, it's more awkward than graphic. Athena raises him in a box, yes, a box, entrusts it to 3 mortal girls and says, "Whatever you do, don't open this." Naturally, they open it immediately. Cue divine groaning. As you step further into the temple, you pass an old offering table, still bearing the ghosts of honey cakes, olives, and wine. You brush your fingers along a faded inscription carved by a grateful craftsman. His chisel marks, "Thank Athena for inspiration," probably for inventing the bridle or the plow, or perhaps, according to some ancient fan theories, the flute. Ah, yes, the flute. Legend has it, she created the first one from a hollow bone, tried it out, and then promptly threw it away when she saw her own cheeks puffing out in a reflection. Vanity, maybe. Or maybe she just thought, this doesn't suit my vibe. Honestly, same. But while you admire her tactical brilliance and unmatched aesthetic, seriously, no one rocks a breastplate quite like her. You can't help but notice a trend. Athena helps heroes, yes, but she does it reluctantly, cautiously, like someone loaning out their favorite book, and knowing it will come back with coffee stains and sand in the spine. You kneel by the temple's eastern colonnade, looking out over Athens. The city sleeps beneath you, a sprawl of rooftops and lamps glowing like fireflies. Somewhere, a donkey brays. Somewhere else, a philosopher is probably overthinking breakfast. Athena, despite her status as goddess of wisdom, isn't known for forgiveness. She's not the nurturing type, more like your strictest professor, the one who taught you everything, but still gave you a B plus just to keep you humble. She respects discipline, strategy, restraint. Unfortunately, those aren't words anyone's ever used to describe, say, Heracles or Odysseus or pretty much any Greek hero who ends up tangled in one of her stories. And yet, she shows up again and again, giving advice, lending weapons, shielding heads. The truth is, she cares. She just doesn't always like the people she's helping. And if she had eyebrows, they'd live permanently raised. You run your fingers over a small carving on the temple wall. An owl, of course. Her symbol, wide-eyed, judging, watching everyone below with that eternal look of, really? This again? And maybe that's the secret. Athena doesn't hate heroes. She just expects better. She wants them to think before acting, to learn from mistakes, to put down the sword and pick up a loom once in a while. Not everything needs to be stabbed. Thank you very much. Tonight, as you curl up near one of the temple's ancient pillars, don't worry. You brought a pillow. The air feels dense with stories. You can hear the rustle of peplos dresses, the clink of bronze, the low hum of philosophy drifting up from the agora. And somewhere, on the other side of this marble mountain, the faintest sigh of a goddess who tried, really tried, to make humans a little less dramatic. You shift slightly against the cool stone of the Parthenon, and just like that, the night air thickens. There's a pulse to it now, like a drumbeat muffled under layers of time. The shadows shift, and suddenly, you're no longer lounging in classical Athens. You're inside a thundercloud, echoing with the low rumble of an Olympian headache. There's a reason Athena has no mother, or rather, she does, sort of. But Medes, goddess of cunning thought, gets swallowed whole by Zeus before the whole parenting thing has a chance to kick off. It's a classic Olympian move. This prophecy says my child will be powerful. Better eat the mother. Zeus, ever the innovator. But divine digestion has its complications. Métis sets up camp inside Zeus's head like an unwanted tenant with a sewing machine. She starts crafting armor for her unborn daughter, hammering out a helmet that gives Zeus a splitting headache. You, meanwhile, hover like a mildly confused ghost in the halls of Olympus, watching the king of the gods clutch his temples while the other gods argue over whether he needs divine aspirin or just a lobotomy. Historians still argue whether myth is symbolic of Greek thought being born fully formed, armored, and wise, or whether it's just the ancient world's most dramatic migraine cure. Either way, the solution comes in the form of Hephaestus, god of forge and facial hair, who, after some polite hesitation, cracks open Zeus's skull with an axe. Out springs Athena, fully grown, fully armored, and already rolling her eyes. And just like that, her destiny is set. No awkward childhood, no embarrassing adolescent years. Just bam, eternal goddess, tactical genius, and already 10 steps ahead of everyone else in the room. You float beside her as she takes her first divine breath, surveying Olympus with a face that says, "All right, what have you people done in my absence?" Poseidon is arguing with Apollo over who gets the next hymn. Hera's inspecting her nails with imperial disdain, and Ares is flexing for no one in particular. The dysfunction is thick enough to stir into tea. Athena doesn't scream, cry, or even blink. She plants her spear, adjusts her helmet, and immediately starts networking. After all, this is a goddess born from thought, not emotion. She's never been a baby, never sucked her thumb, never thrown a tantrum. Well, almost never. We'll get to Arachne later. You drift along behind her as she makes her rounds. She's polite to Hermes, barely. She side-eyes Aphrodite, but says nothing. She speaks in full, grammatically perfect sentences, and when Dionysus offers her wine, she declines. It's not that she's no fun, just that fun tends to lead to chaos, and chaos leads to shirtless men trying to invent war strategies using only figs. Athena sets herself apart immediately. She claims wisdom as her domain, but also warfare, specifically strategic warfare, not Ares' crash bang nonsense, where he charges in with a sword and no plan. She considers the terrain, the weather, and whether diplomacy might be a better opening move. You know, boring, sensible things. Things that heroes ignore roughly 90% of the time. And this is where the annoyance begins. Because Athena's not just wise, she's practical. She's the goddess of, please read the instructions in a world full of people trying to light catapults with their sandals. Take the myth of the Gigantomachy, the great war between the gods and the giants. While the other Olympians flail around making noise, Athena defeats Enceladus by dropping the island of Sicily on top of him. Simple, effective, still holding to this day, apparently. You can even go there, lie on the beach, and imagine the soft grumble of a giant beneath you saying, unfair. But even in these early days, you sense it, the tension between her brilliance and the world's love for showboating morons. You follow her through stories, watching as she gifts the bridle to humans so they can finally ride horses properly. She helps invent the chariot. She gives blacksmiths the spark of craftsmanship and women the art of weaving. And in return, people offer her olive oil and statues, and then immediately run off to pick fights with sea monsters. There's a moment early in her divine career where you catch her on the steps of Olympus, alone. She's just watched yet another mortal ignore her perfectly reasonable warning and fall into a pit full of snakes. She doesn't scream or throw lightning. She just stands there, still as the statue she'll one day inspire, and mutters, "Of course he touched the glowing cursed sword. The other gods may bicker and bluster, but Athena is already planning, building, preparing. She sees the long game, how knowledge will shape cities, how strategy can avoid bloodshed, how women spinning threads in quiet rooms can change history as much as men in shining armor. And still, she will never get credit for half of it. Later, you'll find this same theme echoing through her myths, the expectation of discipline met with mortal chaos, the hope for wisdom answered with hubris, the eye rolls deserved. Back in the Parthenon, you blink, and suddenly you're back among the columns. An owl hoots somewhere, and a breeze brushes your face, carrying the scent of olives and dust. Athena is silent now, just a towering statue again. But for a moment, you could have sworn her lips moved, probably to sigh. You're still nestled in the crook of a marble column, but the air begins to shimmer again. It's not time travel exactly. It's more like story travel, the kind where you don't need a machine, just a curious mind, and maybe a soft place to lie down. You blink once and find yourself beside a very confused man holding a fish. Welcome to the tale of Athena versus Poseidon, also known as the Petty Olympian Real Estate Showdown. This is how Athens almost ended up named after the god of sea spray and questionable tridents. Poseidon, mighty and beard forward, wanted the honor of being patron of this new and promising city. Naturally, Athena wanted it too. So the gods did what any reasonable immortals would do. They turned it into a competition. Zeus, who you're starting to realize absolutely thrives on chaos, declares that whichever god gives the city the better gift will win. You can practically hear Athena's internal groan. Gifts? Really? This again? Poseidon goes first, always one for theatrical entrances. He slams his trident into the Acropolis rock, and out gushes a salty spring. Salty, as in undrinkable, as in, congratulations, your gift is both dramatic and impractical. Also, it may or may not have included a horse, depending on which version of the myth you prefer. Historians still argue whether Poseidon's horse gift was symbolic of transportation or just a flex that backfired. Then it's Athena's turn. No thunder, no dramatic surf, just a quiet planting of an olive tree. But not just any olive tree, the first one, a gift of peace, sustenance, oil, wood, and shade. You can cook with it, light your home, feed your goats, or polish your sandals. It's the Swiss Army knife of trees. The people, perhaps tired of brine and wave damage, pick Athena's gift. And just like that, the city becomes Athens. Poseidon, true to form, pouts. According to some accounts, he floods part of the city in protest. Athena, unbothered and already planning the civic layout, simply redirects the water flow. She's not petty, she's prepared. You wander through the early streets of Athens, back when it's still more of a village with aspirations than a bustling polis. You see shrines with tiny olive oil jars, women weaving in the doorways, children running barefoot under the shade of olive branches. Athena's gift becomes a kind of unspoken rhythm, a symbol of calm prosperity in a world where most gods seem more interested in thunderbolts than agriculture. But even here, there's a flicker of the familiar annoyance in her gaze. Because while the Athenians worship her, build her temples, and name their city in her honor, they also keep asking her to solve their problems, and not in a wise mentor sort of way, more like, hey, could you bless my fish market? Or, my neighbor says, your olive tree is leaning over our fence. Can you smite him? Still, she tolerates it because she wants to guide them. Athena is, at her core, a goddess who believes people can be better, smarter, more capable. She doesn't coddle, but she does invest in them. She's like the ultimate long suffering coach, clipboard in hand, already sketching the next brilliant play, while the team's still arguing about which way to run. And yet, mortals have a way of misreading even the clearest message. Take the story of her and Hephaestus, not exactly a heartwarming meet cute. Hephaestus, misreading Athena's help as romantic interest, gets wildly inappropriate. Athena, predictably, shuts it down. But in true mythological awkwardness, something even weirder happens. A drop of his, let's call it divine enthusiasm, lands on the earth, and from that, Erichthonius is born, half man, half serpent, a symbol, perhaps, of how even unintended events can sprout legends. Athena raises the child in secret, placing him in a box, yes, a literal box, and entrusting him to three sisters. Do not open this, she says. You know what happens next. There's something deeply revealing about that episode. Athena tries to nurture, she tries to trust, and she ends up with betrayal, madness, and yet another lesson in why mortals should not be given boxes and told, don't look. It's like giving a toddler a cookie jar and expecting restraint. You walk through a ghostly version of that moment now, the three sisters peering into the box, gasping, maybe fainting. Athena arrives too late to stop them, but just in time to deliver one of her signature icy glares. No thunder, no rage, just deep disappointment, which, as you know, is somehow much worse. Still, she carries on. She raises Erichthonius anyway, sees to his safety, and eventually installs him as king of Athens. His rule, according to some, brings prosperity and innovation. According to others, he mostly slithered impressively and invented chariot racing. Either way, Athena stays involved. Not because she loves being around people, but because she can't quite stop trying to improve them. There's a tired dignity to her by now, the kind of weariness that settles in when you've saved someone from disaster, only to watch them run right back into it wearing fancier shoes. You almost want to hug her, but you also suspect she'd deflect it with a shield and suggest you read more Hesiod. Back at the Parthenon, the moonlight catches the folds of her robe, casting long shadows across the marble floor. You lean into the stone, comforted by its coolness, and wonder, not for the last time, how it feels to be endlessly wise in a world that keeps choosing spectacle over sense. You know what she'd say: something dry, something sharp, something unerringly correct. You breathe in the ancient dust again, the scent of stone warmed by centuries of sun and incense. It's quiet, but not silent, the kind of hush that suggests history is whispering just out of earshot. You follow the curve of a marble staircase that didn't exist a moment ago, and suddenly you're not in Athens anymore. You're in a forest clearing, the kind where the light filters through olive branches and the cicadas never seem to take a break. A young woman kneels over her loom, hands flying through her threads like she's in a race with the wind. Her name is Arachne, and no, she's not a spider. Yet, this is the story of what happens when someone challenges Athena in the one thing the goddess actually takes personally: craft. See, Athena doesn't just rule over wisdom and strategy and weaving. She is them. She doesn't just represent skill, she embodies it. So, when mortals start whispering that a human girl in Lydia might just be a better weaver than the goddess herself, it's not just about pride, it's about identity. You float near Arachne now, watching her fingers blur through warp and weft. Her tapestries are breathtaking, vibrant, precise, alive with color and detail. Every thread sings, and Arachne, bold thing that she is, doesn't just shrug off the comparisons to Athena, she invites them. Let her come down and prove she's better, she says. The air itself seems to stiffen at those words. Athena does come down, but not with lightning or fanfare. No, she disguises herself as an old woman first, giving Arachne the chance to back down. Maybe don't compare yourself to the gods, she says, voice creaking like a rocking chair. It doesn't usually end well, but Arachne, ever the overachiever, doesn't blink. She's welcome to try me, she replies. And that's the moment Athena drops the disguise. The forest stills. Even the insects pause mid-buzz. A challenge has been accepted, and the goddess, ever the fan of order and rules, agrees to a fair contest. They set up two looms, side by side, a duel of thread and patience. Athena weaves the glory of Olympus, the triumphs of the gods, their justice, their splendor. Her tapestry is flawless, each line singing with celestial authority. Arachne, Arachne weaves the scandals, the cheating, the vanity, the pettiness of the gods. Zeus transformed into animals to chase nymphs. Poseidon behaving badly in temples. Dionysus waking up in stranger places than should be legally allowed. It's all there, rendered in perfect, devastating silk. And here's the kicker: her work is perfect, no flaws, not a thread out of place. Historians still argue whether Athena's reaction was purely about pride or whether it was also a stab of guilt. Because Arachne didn't lie, she just told the truth too well. In one version, Athena praises her skill but punishes her for the content. In another, she tears the tapestry to shreds and strikes Arachne down. Either way, the result is the same. Arachne hangs herself in despair, and in a rare, uneasy act of mercy, or maybe regret, Athena transforms her into a spider so she can weave forever. And that's why you still find webs in the corners of your ceiling, little echoes of a contest that was never quite fair. You drift up into a web now, not sticky, just soft, like hammock threads strung across time. It rocks gently, creaking with the strain of myth. Athena, for all her logic and structure, does have moments like this, flashes of judgment that go just a little too far. You can almost see her afterward, pacing across Olympus, muttering to herself, "Why didn't she just show respect? Why did she have to needle me?" No pun intended. But that's the thing. Athena isn't Aphrodite, basking in admiration. She doesn't expect you to worship her beauty. She expects you to learn, to observe, to think before you act. And when people don't, it grates on her. It's not anger, really. It's disappointment's sharper cousin. You see it again in how she handles the other gods. When Aphrodite tries to rope her into love drama, Athena excuses herself with such dry grace it could powder a city. When Ares starts shouting about battle glory, she sighs and suggests a supply line. It's not that she lacks emotion, it's just that her emotion runs parallel to her intellect. And when intellect is insulted, well, spider time. You float now in an in between place, threads of silk stretching between trees, temples, and even centuries. One strand trembles with the sound of a lyre, another smells faintly of burnt parchment. Athena's presence is in all of them, a quiet pressure, like someone proofreading your thoughts from over your shoulder. You realize something then. Athena isn't just annoyed by heroes because they're reckless or loud or vain. She's annoyed because they could be better, because she wants them to be. She doesn't hate talent. She despises waste. Back in the forest clearing, Arachne's tapestry has reformed itself. Still sharp, still painful, but beautiful. You see Athena standing in front of it, silent, and for just a moment, you think maybe she's not angry anymore. Maybe she's just tired. The forest fades. The web becomes mist. The air shifts again, and you're back beneath the Parthenon's shadow, the owl of Athena watching from a pediment above. You're not sure if she's guarding you or grading you. Either way, she blinks once, and the dream rolls on. The owl blinks again, not ominous, just judgmental, like it knows you've forgotten someone important. And the moment you think that, the stones beneath your back feel warmer, the air thicker, the sky overhead flickers, not with lightning, but with the golden shimmer of a name you haven't heard in a while. Odysseus. Yes, that Odysseus. Mister, what if I lied my way through every problem? The hero who took 10 years to get home and somehow still got a standing ovation. The man who really should have just asked for directions and a therapist. And Athena? Oh, she was so close to liking him. See, if you look at their relationship on paper, it's almost perfect. She favors cleverness. He's clever. She values strategy. He's basically the human embodiment of a plot twist. She likes mortals who use their brains, not just their swords. And Odysseus wrote the playbook on that. But here's the problem. Odysseus is also extremely annoying. You find yourself now aboard a ghostly ship drifting through the Aegean, the sails whispering ancient gossip. You see him, our boy O, reclining with a smug little grin, spinning another yarn to his very patient crew. Athena watches from above, her expression somewhere between fond aunt and exhausted babysitter. She helps him a lot, gets him out of more scrapes than you can count, calms storms, sends hints, disguises him when necessary. She even manipulates a few monsters and mortals on his behalf, not because he asks, but because she believes in his potential. the potential to be a different kind of hero. But potential can be infuriating when it just won't behave. Take the time Odysseus blinds Polyphemus, the Cyclops. Great move tactically, less great when he yells his own name as he sails away. You watch Athena facepalm so hard that the air ripples. It's the mythological equivalent of watching someone finish a stealth mission only to shout, "That was me, Odysseus of Ithaca." You mad, bro? Poseidon, who happens to be Polyphemus's dad, takes it personally. Cue the rest of the Odyssey: storms, sirens, cannibals, and that one awkward detour where everyone forgets their wives for a year. Athena, meanwhile, keeps bailing him out, but each time it gets a little less enthusiastic. Not absent, just tinged with the same vibe you get when someone says, "Sure, I'll help," again. And then there's Circe and Calypso and all the other enchanted ladies who seem magnetically drawn to our traveling problem child. Athena doesn't interfere with them exactly, but you can sense the side eye, not because she's jealous. Goddesses don't get jealous over mortals. Well, unless they're Hera. No, it's more that she's watching him fall for distractions again and again when he could be inventing sea navigation or rebuilding democracy from scratch. Historians still argue whether Athena's support of Odysseus was true affection or just long-term investment management. You float beside them now as Athena finally helps him reach Ithaca after 10 years. She disguises him as an old man so he can sneak in and reclaim his throne. And the moment he starts waxing poetic about his cunning plan to kill 100 suitors with a bow, you can almost hear Athena mutter, "Of course that's your idea of a homecoming." Still, she helps, guides his arrow, calms Penelope's doubts, even throws a little divine influence to prevent civil war when Odysseus's actions inevitably cause some social awkwardness. And then she leaves. That's the part people skip over. She doesn't stay to bask in the applause, doesn't demand tribute or temples. She just withdraws, not angrily, just with the quiet finality of someone who's realized a long-term project may have reached its emotional expiration date. You find her on a hillside overlooking Ithaca, watching the smoke rise from feasting halls. She looks content, in a removed sort of way, like a teacher at graduation, proud, but already scanning next year's roster. You want to ask if she regrets it, helping Odysseus so much. But you already know the answer. Athena doesn't regret effort. She regrets waste. And while Odysseus wasn't a complete failure, he wasn't the shining paragon she'd quietly hoped for either. The ship dissolves beneath your feet, and you're floating now through memories, not your own. A battlefield here, a temple there, all echoing with names Athena once believed in. Some disappointed, some vanished, a few rose above, but most just muddled through. There's a certain loneliness to being the goddess of wisdom. Everyone wants your help, but no one wants to study. You drift back toward the Acropolis, where the stones remember all of this. They hum with old prayers and fresher regrets, and overhead her owl circles once more, not as a messenger, but as a reminder. Wisdom is always watching, even when it no longer intervenes. The owl glides out of view, and the sky around you deepens into a twilight not quite day, not quite myth. You feel the weight of centuries pressing softly against your shoulders, like a very polite book club that's just a little too into tragedy. And speaking of tragedy, let's talk about Theseus. If Athena had a list of heroes who started strong, but then immediately made her regret everything, Theseus would have his name etched in bold, underlined, and possibly circled in red. You find yourself standing on the edge of an ancient dock, waves lapping lazily at the stone. In the distance, a black sailed ship approaches, creaking with the promise of overconfidence. On board stands Theseus, tall, probably smug, sword in hand, and destiny in his back pocket. Athens, at this point in time, is tired. It's dealing with a grim tax from Crete, young people sent off every few years to be eaten by a bull-headed monster in a labyrinth that makes IKEA look like a picnic. It's bleak, it's demoralizing, and it's exactly the sort of logistical nonsense Athena hates. Then comes Theseus, volunteering to go, slay the Minotaur, and end the madness. A noble plan, very heroic, kind of loud about it. Athena doesn't officially sponsor him like she does Odysseus, but she's definitely keeping an eye on this one. He's clever, she thinks. Not brilliant, but good with a sword, and even better with a story. And in the beginning, he doesn't disappoint. You drift through the labyrinth now, which is more like a massive underground tangle of myth, fog, and questionable interior design. Theseus moves carefully, guided by Ariadne's thread, a simple ball of string that works only because someone, possibly Athena, depending on which version you read, whispered the trick to Ariadne in the first place. Finds the Minotaur, fights it, wins. Simple, clean, almost textbook. But then things get messy. Theseus takes Ariadne with him, promising something. Love? Gratitude? A timeshare? It's unclear. They stop on Naxos, and instead of continuing home, Theseus abandons her there, just sails off. Historians still argue whether this was a calculated move, divine intervention, or just emotional cowardice. Athena, for her part, remains conspicuously silent. You picture her watching from above as Theseus strolls back to Athens, only to forget one crucial detail, changing the ship's sails from black to white, a prearranged signal to his father that he'd survived. You hover over King Aegeus now, standing atop a cliff, scanning the horizon. He sees black sails and assumes the worst, throws himself into the sea. Theseus arrives home a hero and also an orphan. Athena is not amused, and that's the theme with Theseus. He's not malicious, just monumentally careless in that specific, exhausting way that makes you want to send someone a self-help scroll. He keeps going, racking up more adventures and increasingly questionable decisions. His governance of Athens is fine, but he starts more wars than he ends, and his later years are marked by exile, poor alliances, and that awkward moment when he kidnaps the wrong princess. It's like watching someone ace the SATs and then set fire to their own resume. Athena watches from Olympus, arms probably crossed. She didn't invest in him the way she did with others, but still, he had potential. She probably imagined a city rebuilt with clarity and reason, helmed by a king who understood cause and effect. Instead, She got a man who forgot to change the sails. Back in the present, or rather, the mythic now, you walk among the ruins of the original Athenian harbor. The stones are worn smooth by centuries of sandals and regrets. Somewhere nearby, someone is still telling the story of Theseus and the Minotaur like it's a flawless victory. But you know better now. You know that Athena wasn't disappointed because heroes made mistakes. That's expected. It was that they never learned from them, that they didn't listen, and nothing irks a goddess of wisdom more than being ignored. You move through the agora next, silent ghosts of debates drifting past you. This was where policy was argued, laws drafted, philosophy born, a place Theseus helped found, but rarely understood. Athena loved Athens. She gave it her name, her olive tree, her protection. But the people, they still had to earn it. And every time a promising leader forgot a crucial detail or abandoned someone on an island, she felt that flicker of annoyance return. Not wrath, not punishment, just that slow burn of, really? Again? Still, she didn't abandon them. Not entirely. That's not how Athena works. She steps back, lets them try, watches them build or break what they've been given. That's what makes her divine and deeply human all at once. The sea breeze rises slightly now, brushing your cheek with salt and old regrets. You look back at the horizon, half expecting a ship with black sails to come gliding back into view, but the sea stays calm, and the goddess, wherever she is, stays silent. The sky takes on a golden hue again, like the pages of an old book left in sunlight. You hear the soft clink of armor, not warlike, just ceremonial, a gentle rustle of linen. The world around you shifts once more, and now you're standing in a palace courtyard where the sun dapples through fig trees and the air smells faintly of crushed laurel and fresh olives. This is where you meet Bellerophon. And oh boy, if Athena had a "you had one job" folder, Bellerophon would be in it, with footnotes. Now, Bellerophon wasn't always a disappointment. In fact, at first, he was precisely the kind of mortal Athena tends to root for. Smart, strong, not too chatty, the kind of guy who could lead a festival procession and wrestle a snake. His biggest claim to fame? Taming Pegasus. And while that might sound like something only a Disney montage could explain, the myth is a little messier. Pegasus, you'll remember, was born from the blood of Medusa. Yes, that Medusa, after Perseus lopped off her head. Don't ask about the biology. Myth doesn't do anatomy. Bellerophon, like many young heroes, decides he wants the winged horse. Reasonable. Who wouldn't want a flying steed with shampoo commercial hair? But horses, especially divine ones, don't just walk up to you and say, hop on. Pegasus, true to form, refuses to be caught. That's when Athena steps in. You watch her now as she appears to Bellerophon in a dream, or perhaps in a temple vision, offering him a golden bridle, intricately crafted, shimmering like moonlight on water. She tells him how to approach Pegasus, how to earn the creature's trust. This is a rare moment, a divine gift, direct and deeply personal, and it works. Pegasus accepts the bridle, and Bellerophon becomes one of the few mortals in myth to ride, a god-touched beast. Athena at this point, is probably pleased, maybe even hopeful. With Pegasus, Bellerophon completes incredible feats, slaying the Chimera, a fire-breathing mashup of lion, goat, and snake, defeating rogue armies, basically checking off the entire hero starter pack. The problem comes after. You float above him now as he stands on a cliff, wind whipping his cloak, Pegasus pawing the earth beside him. He looks up, way up, toward Olympus, and then he decides to go there, not metaphorically, not in prayer. No, Bellerophon physically attempts to ride Pegasus to Olympus and join the gods, just casually insert himself into the divine social calendar, as if Zeus had a guest list and Bellerophon wrote in his own name with a glitter. Athena sees this. From her vantage on the mountain, she watches him rising toward the clouds. Her expression isn't rage, it's something far worse. Disappointment. You feel it in the air now. Thick, still, as if even the sky is holding its breath. Because the gods don't mind when mortals worship them, or even challenge them occasionally. But presumption, that's a line. Historians still argue whether Athena warned him. Some versions say she did, softly, subtly, with a dream or a shifting wind. Others say she stayed silent, knowing that some lessons must be learned the hard way. What we do know is that Zeus acts. He sends a gadfly, a tiny, buzzing insect, to sting Pegasus mid-flight. Pegasus jerks, panics, throws Bellerophon from the sky. You fall with him now, watching as the ground rises too fast. No divine arms catch him, no owl overhead, just the hard landing of overreaching ambition. Bellerophon survives. Barely. He's crippled, his glory days behind him, and he lives the rest of his life in isolation, wandering fields, talking to himself. It's not a punishment so much as a fizzle, a slow unraveling of what could have been. And Athena? She doesn't visit. Not again. You walk beside the now aged Bellerophon through the ghost fields of his later years. His once gilded armor is rusted, his stories softer at the edges. Occasionally, he glances upward, as if expecting Pegasus to return. He doesn't. You can almost hear Athena sigh somewhere in the background. Not a harsh sound, just weary. She gave him a gift, a chance, a bridle made from dreams, and he used it well until he didn't. It wasn't arrogance that doomed him. It was assumption, the belief that success in one realm entitles you to everything else. That bravery equals elevation. That divine favor is a ladder, not a lens. Athena favors humility paired with cleverness. Audacity is fine, but it has to be aware audacity, the kind that double checks its own map before aiming for Olympus. You feel a change in the wind now, like feathers brushing your skin, not wings exactly, just the memory of them. Pegasus flies on, somewhere, untouched, untamed, and Athena, she files this one away. Another lesson, another sigh. Now, the world folds around you like fabric, soft linen layered over old stone. You blink, and you're no longer in battlefields or palaces or skyscraping moments of mortal hubris. Instead, you're beneath a quiet olive grove, watching the shadows dance across the grass like they're whispering secrets. It's peaceful here, but you get the sense that something complicated is about to unfold. Enter Perseus. Yes, that Perseus, the one you know as the guy with the Medusa thing. And to be fair, it's a pretty memorable line on a mythological resume. But before the shield and the snakes, before the statuesque aftermath and the awkward family reunions, there was Athena watching closely. Perseus is different from the others you've met. He's less noisy than Theseus, more grounded than Bellerophon, and, crucially, he listens. When told not to look Medusa in the eye, he doesn't. It sounds simple, but after a parade of heroes who make their lives harder out of sheer enthusiasm, it's genuinely refreshing. So Athena invests. You're with her now, floating just behind her shoulder as she crafts the polished bronze shield. So polished, it could double as a mirror. She doesn't just give it to Perseus, she shows him how to use it. Angle, light, reflection. It's part weapon, part logic puzzle, all elegance, and Perseus, to his credit, absorbs it all like a sponge who actually reads the instructions. He also gets backup from Hermes, who lends him winged sandals, and Hades, who contributes a helm of invisibility. But it's Athena who anchors the plan, who guides him toward strategy over brute force, who whispers that there's more than one way to outwit a monster. You follow him now to the island where Medusa sleeps. The air is thick with tension and stone, a lot of stone, former warriors, failed quests, and maybe one unlucky delivery guy. Perseus stays calm, uses the shield, the angle, the silence, a clean strike, no drama. Medusa's head, severed, still dangerous, tucked into a satchel like the world's most cursed handbag. Athena appears beside him, not dramatically, not with thunder, just there. You see her take the head gently and place it at the center of her shield, the aegis. It's a subtle moment, but powerful. She doesn't waste. She doesn't gloat. Historians still argue whether Athena had a deeper relationship with Medusa. Some versions say Medusa was once her priestess, cursed unfairly after an assault in her temple. Others argue Medusa was always monstrous, a symbol of chaos needing order. But here's what's clear: Athena honors what was dangerous by making it protective. The face that turned men to stone now protects Athena's people. Fear turned into strength, trauma into warning. There's something deeply personal in that decision. Back to Perseus. He returns a hero, delivers the head, saves his mother from a terrible marriage arrangement, and, rare among heroes, doesn't immediately blow it all by starting a war or claiming Olympus. In fact, Athena remains surprisingly fond of him. You trail behind him through the rest of his life. He marries, founds a city, raises children who don't immediately bring shame to the family name. And while he doesn't rise to Odyssean levels of wit or Promethean tragedy, he remains solid, functional, like the Greek myth equivalent of a really good plumber. Not flashy, but absolutely essential. Athena probably liked that. Someone who got the job done without creating 3 new problems along the way. You can almost hear her muttering, "Finally." Still, even with Perseus, that flicker of annoyance lingers. Not because he fails, but because he's the exception. One of the few. Most heroes, they get the advice, the tools, the nudges, and then promptly ignore them. Perseus proves what's possible, and that makes the rest all the more frustrating. You walk through a quiet corridor now, past marble statues, frozen in mid expression. Some look heroic, some just surprised. You imagine Athena gliding past them, gaze cool, arms folded, thinking, you were warned. There's a lesson in the Perseus story, tucked between the decapitation and divine fashion accessories. That true wisdom lies not in power, but in restraint, in listening, in the quiet elegance of following instructions without letting ego grab the wheel. Athena isn't impressed by flash. She's impressed by follow through. And so, Perseus passes quietly into legend. No dramatic exile, no ill fated ambition spiral, no fatal ship sail snafu. Just a hero who did the job, made smart choices, and didn't fly too close to the sun or Olympus. You exhale, realizing how rare that is. How strangely relaxing. The wind through the olive trees picks up again, as if Athena herself is offering a brief nod of approval. Don't get used to it. You drift now from olive groves and shining shields into the dusty, sun-baked streets of a city that never truly sleeps. Athens at its height. The hum of voices, the clatter of sandals on marble steps, and the scent of fresh bread mingle with the distant murmur of the agora's lively debates. It's easy to imagine yourself blending in, a silent observer amid philosophers, merchants, and politicians. But your focus isn't on the streets. It's on a figure standing quietly in a temple, weaving wisdom into the world's future. Aspasia of Miletus. Aspasia is one of those rare figures whose life invites endless scholarly debate. Was she a courtesan, a teacher, a political advisor? Historians still argue, but what's certain is that she was a woman who managed to influence Athens' greatest minds, including Pericles himself. Athena, the goddess of wisdom and strategic warfare, probably had complicated feelings about Aspasia. Here was a mortal woman who wielded intellect and charm in a male-dominated society, pushing boundaries in a way that made Athena nod with quiet approval, but also raise an eyebrow. You follow Aspasia through smoky symposia, where ideas swirl thick in the air like incense. She speaks carefully, each word a brushstroke on a grand philosophical canvas. Some admire her, others resent her, but no one can ignore her. Athena's favorite heroes often fight battles with swords or monsters, but Aspasia fights with ideas. It's a different kind of battle, one that Athena respects deeply, even if it's less glamorous. You feel the weight of the contradictions around her. Athens celebrates democracy, yet women are mostly excluded from its promises. Aspasia lives in this tension, navigating public power and private scrutiny. You sense Athena watching from above as Aspasia pushes the limits, quietly teaching rhetoric to men and women alike, shaping the minds that shape history. One night, you catch Athena's silent smile as Aspasia discusses justice and ethics, reminding everyone that wisdom isn't just knowledge, it's knowing when to speak and when to listen. The goddess's mild annoyance returns only when Aspasia's influence threatens to disrupt tradition too rapidly. Athena values progress, but she's wary of upheaval that ignores prudence. You drift out of the temple, past shadows stretching long across marble floors, and reflect on the strange balance Athena maintains. She champions heroes who fight monsters, yes, but she also champions those who fight ideas, navigating the delicate dance of power, gender, and legacy. Aspasia is proof that not all heroes wear armor. Some wield words sharp enough to cut through centuries of silence. You inhale the cool, night air, scented faintly with olive and history, feeling a calm settle in. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, isn't just annoyed by mistakes. She's intrigued by complexity. And tonight, you sleep with that thought gently settling over you, like a feather drifting on a quiet breeze. The sun begins to dip low, casting long shadows that stretch like lazy cats over the worn stones of a quiet coastal town. You find yourself by a calm harbor where fishing boats sway gently, their sails furled and resting. The air tastes faintly of salt and fresh seaweed, and you imagine the soft slap of waves against wooden hulls. Here, far from the battlefield and palace intrigues, you encounter the story of a lesser known but equally fascinating figure, Aristeus of Proconnesus, a semi mythical poet and prophet. His life is a curious blend of the mundane and the mystical, and Athena's relationship with him is complicated. Aristeus is not a traditional hero. No epic battles, no divine gifts. Instead, he's known for his poetry and strange prophetic powers, wandering the edges of reality and legend. Some say he could project his soul across great distances, a sort of ancient astral traveler. Historians still argue whether this was metaphor or early mystical experience. Athena's interest in Aristeus seems less about heroism and more about the pursuit of knowledge and the mysteries of the human mind. You watch her from above, an amused observer, as Aristeus disappears for years, only to reappear with cryptic verses and tales that puzzle and inspire his community. His poetry, rich with images of distant lands and divine revelations, seems to echo Athena's own domain, wisdom born from experience, and a restless curiosity that defies easy explanation. You feel a sense of quiet awe as you follow Aristeus through his wanderings, realizing that Athena's slight annoyance with heroes isn't reserved for their failures, but sometimes for their limited vision. Aristeus's journey suggests a path of contemplation and transcendence that many warriors overlook. Yet, even with his mysterious talents, Aristeus faces skepticism and misunderstanding. His prophecies can unsettle, and his absences strain those who depend on him. Athena seems to tolerate this with a patient but firm gaze, perhaps because she recognizes that wisdom often walks a lonely road. As twilight deepens, you imagine the soft flicker of oil lamps in homes along the shore, and you settle into the gentle rhythms of reflection and mystery. Tonight, Athena's annoyance feels less like frustration and more like a tender, if firm, expectation that her heroes, whatever their form, keep reaching beyond themselves. The sea whispers beside you, a timeless lullaby. The world shifts again beneath your feet, this time to a quiet garden, blooming with lavender and time under a soft Mediterranean sun. You're no longer by the sea, but in a courtyard filled with the scent of blooming herbs and the faint rustle of pages turning in a nearby study. This is where you meet Hypatia of Alexandria, a woman whose wisdom and spirit earned her a place in the tangled intersection of philosophy, science, and myth. Hypatia's story doesn't involve battling monsters or epic quests, but instead revolves around a different kind of heroism, intellectual bravery. Living in a time when Alexandria was a hub of learning and religious tension, she dared to teach mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy to anyone willing to listen, regardless of their gender or status. Athena, goddess of wisdom and strategic thought, would have looked upon Hypatia with a mixture of admiration and cautious concern. Here was a mortal truly devoted to knowledge, yet her brilliance and independence stirred unease among the powers that be. You feel Athena's protective gaze, though softened by a touch of frustration. Why must wisdom so often be met with resistance? Hypatia's life is marked by her relentless pursuit of understanding and her refusal to bow to social pressures. Yet, historians still argue over the exact circumstances of her death, which many agree was as much political as it was tragic. Her murder by a mob is a chilling reminder of the costs paid by those who challenge dominant narratives. You wander with Hypatia through sunlit lecture halls and bustling marketplaces, sensing the quiet strength it takes to maintain curiosity and courage in a world that doesn't always welcome either. Her legacy, much like Athena's, is not simply about knowledge, but about the courage to use it wisely. In the gentle hum of the garden, you hear Athena's soft sigh, a blend of respect and lingering annoyance, not at Hypatia herself, but at the world that failed to protect her. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the sun warm your face and the soft fragrance of herbs settle around you. It's a reminder that wisdom often grows in quiet places and that sometimes the greatest heroes are those who dare to think differently. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, you carry Hypatia's light with you, a beacon of calm, steadfast brilliance. The scene shifts subtly, and you find yourself standing on the rugged slopes of a distant mountain range, where pine needles crackle softly beneath your feet and the air smells crisp and pine scented. Here is a place less spoken of in the usual tales, a corner of the ancient world where the threads of myth and history intertwine in curious ways. You are now in the realm of the Amazons, the fierce warrior, women who have long captured imaginations, but remain shrouded in mystery and debate. Athena's connection with the Amazons is layered and complex. While she's the goddess who champions wisdom and strategy, she is also sometimes portrayed as a patron and guide to these formidable women. Warriors, though she remains cautious of their wild independence. The slight annoyance you sense in her isn't just about their rebellious spirit, but also about the challenge they pose to the carefully ordered world she prefers. You walk alongside an Amazon warrior named Antiope, who embodies strength, skill, and a sharp mind. Antiope's story is told in fragments and whispers. Her life, a tapestry of alliances, battles, and blurred lines between enemy and ally. Some myths say she was even abducted by Theseus, leading to complicated relationships and tangled loyalties. Historians still argue about the true historical basis of the Amazons, whether they were mythic symbols or based on real warrior women living on the fringes of the ancient world. As you watch Antiope train with spear and shield, you notice the blend of discipline and raw power, a reminder that Athena's brand of strategy includes respect for skill and courage. But you also catch a flicker of tension. Athena's desire for order often clashes with the Amazon's fierce independence. The day fades to dusk, and you hear the crackling of a campfire. Antiope's voice carries stories of battles fought not just with swords, but with ideals. The Amazons challenge the heroes of Greece not merely in combat, but in questions of gender roles, freedom, and power. Questions Athena herself seems to muse over, even as she sometimes wishes they'd just follow her rules. You settle into the quiet crackle of the firelight, feeling the weight of unspoken history and enduring myths. Athena's mild annoyance here is not condemnation, but a call for balance between chaos and order, freedom and responsibility. As night deepens, you feel the steady rhythm of the mountains around you, and with it, a sense of respect for those who live boldly on the edges. You close your eyes, letting the gentle flicker of firelight soothe your thoughts, carried softly on the mountain breeze. Now, the landscape melts away into the quiet calm of an ancient library, the scent of aged papyrus and ink curling gently in the air. You find yourself surrounded by towering shelves filled with scrolls, where scholars whisper softly and pens scratch as knowledge is carefully transcribed. This is the Library of Alexandria, a beacon of learning and one of history's greatest wonders, until it wasn't. Athena's role here is subtle but profound. As the goddess of wisdom, she embodies the spirit of inquiry and the preservation of knowledge. Yet, the loss of the library and all the wisdom it contained must have been a source of deep, quiet sorrow for her. There's a lingering tension between Athena's aspirations for order and the chaotic realities of history. You follow the story of a librarian named Zenodotus, the first head librarian, who devoted himself to collecting, organizing, and even editing texts to make them accessible. His work laid foundations for future scholarship, but the library's fate remains shrouded in mystery, with historians still arguing about the exact causes and timing of its destruction. You wander among scholars debating philosophy, astronomy, and medicine, fields Athena proudly claims. Yet you sense the fragility of this knowledge, vulnerable to politics, war, and the passage of time. In a quiet moment, you imagine Athena's slight annoyance as she watches human ambition and carelessness threaten to undo centuries of progress. It's not fury, but a gentle disappointment, like a teacher watching a student forget their lessons. Yet even in loss, Athena's spirit endures, inspiring those who seek wisdom despite setbacks. As you drift through the library's fading light, you feel the soft rustle of turning pages and the enduring hope that knowledge, once kindled, can never be truly extinguished. The quiet hum of the ancient scrolls lulls you gently onward, carrying you toward a restful dreams. The scene fades into a gentle evening glow over a sprawling Roman villa, where the scent of blooming roses mingles with the faint clinking of wine cups. You wander through marble halls and quiet gardens, tracing the life of a Roman matron named Cornelia, renowned not for battlefield glory, but for her steadfast wisdom and quiet strength. Cornelia, mother of the Gracchi brothers, famous reformers, is often remembered as the ideal Roman mother, embodying virtue and intellect. You can almost hear Athena's approving smile as Cornelia imparts lessons of duty and courage to her sons, raising future heroes with measured grace. But Cornelia's story also reveals the subtle power of women in a male dominated world. Historians still argue about how much influence she really wielded in political circles, but there's no doubt her values shaped Rome's future. Athena's mild annoyance here might stem from the limits imposed on such capable women, an ancient frustration with a society that undervalues its wisest. As you stroll the villa's shadowed corridors, you glimpse Cornelia navigating family and politics with quiet resolve. Her strength isn't loud or brash, it's steady, like the pulse of a calm heartbeat beneath the chaos of history. Athena's respect for Cornelia shines through, tempered by the goddess's desire for heroes to wield their wisdom more openly, to challenge the world's constraints with visible force. You inhale the cool evening air, letting the soft sounds of the villa, rustling leaves, distant laughter, settle your mind. Tonight, Athena's slight annoyance feels less like judgment and more like encouragement to embrace strength in all its forms, whether in spear or in silent guidance. You close your eyes, carried by the soothing rhythm of ancient stones and gentle voices, ready to drift toward peaceful sleep. The world quiets further as twilight deepens, and you find yourself wandering through the gentle hills of ancient Gaul, where wildflowers sway softly in a breeze scented with fresh earth and distant pine. Here, you meet Vercingetorix, the chieftain who united the Gallic tribes against Roman conquest, a hero remembered not just for battle, but for resilience. Vercingetorix's story is one of courage tinged with tragedy. You imagine Athena's watchful eyes, appreciating his strategic mind and leadership, but also noting his human flaws. Historians still argue whether his resistance was doomed from the start or a testament to fierce independence. His alliances, betrayals, and ultimate surrender remind you that even the greatest heroes face limits beyond their control. Athena's slight annoyance might come from those moments when pride clouds wisdom, yet her respect remains unwavering. As night settles around you, the soft sounds of crickets and rustling leaves soothe your senses. You feel the weight of history gently lift, replaced by a quiet sense of connection to the past. Athena's presence here is calming. Her subtle lessons about balance, humility, and courage echo softly as you prepare to rest. You breathe in the cool night air, letting the soft rhythms of this ancient world cradle your thoughts and ease you toward sleep. Now, as you lie still, the stories you've journeyed through begin to fade like twilight blending into night. The gods and heroes, scholars and warriors, all recede softly into the quiet fabric of dreams. Remember that Athena's slight annoyance was never harsh. It was the tender, watchful gaze of wisdom, encouraging growth, patience, and understanding. Allow yourself to drift gently, held by the calm embrace of history's soothing pulse. The olive trees whisper their ancient lullaby, the sea hums a timeless song, and the stars above twinkle like watchful eyes, peaceful and kind. Rest easy now, carrying the calm strength of Athena's wisdom into your dreams. Sleep well.